just dive right into this incredible metaphor from our source text. It explicitly describes communication as the bloodstreams of administrative organization. Think about that for a second. Without a bloodstream, an organism dies, right? Without the flow of information, an organization completely collapses. So it's not just some nice-to-have add-on, it is the literal lifeblood of keeping the entire administrative body alive and kicking. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the heart of management, map out the flow of information, examine the anatomy of a message, check our communication vitals, and then finally prescribe the 7 C's. All right, jumping right into Section 1, the heart of management, the absolute core of modern administration. Leaning right into that biological metaphor, our source material actually takes it a step further. If communication is the bloodstream, well, then it's also the heart of management. It holds this completely undeniable position in modern administration. Whenever 2 or more individuals interact, whenever there's a flow of information from one person to another, management is happening. It's the fundamental element of the whole process. I mean, you simply can't manage people or resources or projects, no matter how brilliant your strategy is, if that heart isn't pumping information exactly where it needs to go. Moving on to Section 2, the flow of information. Let's look at exactly how messages actually travel through the corporate body. Just like a human body has, different types of blood vessels, an organization has completely different networks for its information. First up, we've got formal communication. This represents your rigid, established lines of authority. It's procedural, mostly written down, and follows strict channels. And why do we need that? Well, the source notes that it fosters accountability and guarantees equal treatment across the board. But of course, formal channels aren't the whole story. On the flip side, we have informal communication. Think about the last time you just bypassed the chain of command to quickly ask a coworker for a favor. That happens between friends, it lacks formality, and relies heavily on verbal exchanges, face-to-face chats, and even just gestures. It's that natural human network that bypasses the formal arteries to get things done fast. Now, what's really fascinating about formal communication is how its purpose completely changes depending on which direction it's flowing. First, we have downward flow, so superior to subordinate. This isn't just about, barking orders. It provides vital direction, a sense of security, and actually improves overall efficiency because people know exactly what's expected of them. Then we have upward flow, subordinate to superior. This one is absolutely critical. It allows employees to offer suggestions and reveals their true feelings and behaviors to top management. And finally, horizontal flow, which happens at the exact same level. This is where the magic happens for coordinating daily tasks, solving immediate problems, and resolving conflicts without having to escalate every little thing to the top. Okay, Section 3, the anatomy of a message. Let's zoom in and follow a single thought's journey. At the micro level, the whole thing kicks off with Step 1, the sender, the person attempting to communicate in the first place. But before anything is actually said or written down, Step 2 happens, which is encoding. This is that crucial, often totally invisible process of taking your abstract ideas, your thoughts and feelings, and formulating them into something that can actually be transmitted. The result of that mental gymnastics? Step 3, the message itself. It's the tangible outcome of your encoding, whether it ends up being spoken words or nonverbal signals. But to complete the journey, that message needs a vehicle. And that is Step 4, the medium. This is your carrier. It could be a face-to-face conversation, a phone call, a dense written report, or even a visual chart. The medium carries the message straight to Step 5, the receiver, who then has to perform decoding. Basically, they translate the received message back into meaningful thoughts. But how do you actually know your message landed the way you intended? Well, that brings us to Step 6, feedback. The source highlights that feedback refers to the various signals made by the receiver that show exactly how the communication is being received. It's literally the ultimate signal of successful reception, letting the sender know if their original thought survived the trip intact. Section 4, communication vitals. Let's look at the characteristics of a healthy system. If you want to diagnose your own team's communication, you need to check these key vitals. Take size, for instance. The larger your team, the more friction and breakdowns you're naturally going to face. It's just a numbers game. You also have to monitor repetitiousness. Sometimes messages come down the pipeline repeatedly, and over time, that repetition actually requires correction to stay accurate. Or consider the gap, which is the time interval between communications. If the gap is too long, people just lose the thread entirely. And once again, we come back to feedback. Interestingly, the text points out that while feedback is essential, some systems actively encourage it, while others simply do not allow it at all. Balancing all of these vitals is what ultimately determines the overall efficiency of your entire communication network.
And that brings us to Section 5, the 7 Cs. This is the ultimate prescription for healthy communication. I actually want to pause here and pose a direct question to you. Is your message actually clear? Seriously, think about the last workplace email you sent, or the last meeting you ran. Did it genuinely transfer your encoded thought right into the receiver's mind without any friction? To make sure the answer is a resounding yes, our source text provides this fantastic prescription: 7 vital principles, the 7 Cs, designed to keep your corporate bloodstream clean and incredibly efficient. Let's diagnose them.
First up is completeness. This means having all the necessary facts and figures, leaving absolutely zero guesswork for the receiver. But of course, being complete doesn't mean rambling on forever, which brings us to conciseness. You need to deliver those complete ideas directly, using the fewest words possible. Next, to make sure your audience is actually engaged, apply consideration. Put the full focus on their attention by using the word you instead of I. It really centers them in the narrative. And fourth, ground everything in concreteness. Back up your words with solid facts and suitable examples, and mechanically speaking, force yourself to use the active voice rather than the passive voice.
Now, even with all those elements, if you bury your message in a massive wall of text, you lack clarity. The receiver has to instantly understand your meaning. The practical fix here? Keep your paragraphs small. Next, remember you're dealing with actual human beings, so courtesy is absolutely paramount. Always communicate in a polite, polished manner. And finally, rounding out the 7, we have correctness. A truly healthy message demands accurate figures and perfectly correct language. So that means no grammar mistakes and strictly using non-discriminatory language to establish total trust.
So we've mapped the arteries of formal and informal networks, we've traced a single thought from encoding all the way to feedback, and we've laid out the 7 Cs required to keep the whole system flowing without a breakdown. So I'll leave you with this final thought to reflect on today. If communication is truly the bloodstream of your organization, how healthy is your pulse right now? Try taking these 7 Cs into your very next workplace interaction, check those vitals, and keep that information flowing. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep on learning.